Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Welcome to this 2026 HESI Global Forum, convened under the theme Reimagining Higher Education for Global Transformation Towards a Sustainable Future. My name is Ola Jönsson. I'm from the Division for Sustainable Development Goals at HESI, and I will serve as your Master of Ceremonies for today's event. The forum today is convened as a special event at the 2026 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. Today's discussion will examine how higher education can serve as a catalyst for global solutions, systematic change, and inclusive sustainable development. We're very pleased to welcome all colleagues to this meeting, joining from across regions, institutions, and stakeholder groups. Next slide, please. So before we begin, allow me to point out a few brief housekeeping notes for speakers and respondents. Please ensure to turn on your camera when possible. Kindly also keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. The event today is being recorded, and the recording will be made publicly available on the forum website. We encourage all participants today to use the chat through the meeting for networking, questions, and information shared by the Secretariat. For session moderators, we kindly ask you to manage your sessions closely and keep the session to its allotted time. An indication will appear when 3 minutes remain in the session. Once the time has elapsed, we will close the session so that the next segment can begin on time and receive its full allocation. This is to ensure fairness to all speakers and the topics that are addressed. Next slide, please. So let me briefly take you through today's program. We will begin with opening remarks by HESI, UNESCO, and UN University. We will then move into 4 substantive sessions. The first one will focus on transforming higher education institutions and learning for sustainable futures. The second session will examine universities as knowledge producers and co-creators and see how research can better connect with policy and practice. The third session will focus on partnerships that deliver practical impact for SDGs 6, 7, 9, 11, and 17. These are the goals that are under in-depth review at this year's HLPF. And the fourth session will explore how higher education can contribute more strategically to sustainable development towards and beyond 2030, and what messages, partnership, and actions are needed to accelerate progress. We will then conclude with brief closing remarks and some next steps. Next slide, please. I now have the honor to kindly invite Mr. Navid Hanif. He is the United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Economic Development in the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs to deliver opening remarks. AST Navid, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Ola. And greetings from New York, colleagues, students, partners, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the 2026 Global Forum of the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative. I thank HESI co-chairs and partners UNESCO, the United Nations University, and Solitest, and the entire HESI community for your leadership. We meet at a difficult moment for sustainable development. Conflict, geopolitical fragmentation, climate change, inequality, and fiscal pressures are slowing progress in many countries. Yet, we are not giving up. Progress still continues. Today, 92% of the world's population has access to electricity. Internet use has grown from 40% in 2015 to 74% in 2025. Renewable energy is expanding, and countries have stronger data to track the sustainable development goals. Ladies and gentlemen, behind each of these gains are people with knowledge and skills to make them happen. Every clean energy system, digital innovation, and public health breakthrough began with education. That is why higher education is not only simply another part of the 2030 agenda, it is an accelerator of the entire agenda. Nearly 264 million students are enrolled in higher education today, more than double the number 2 decades ago. Universities educate the engineers, teachers, scientists, entrepreneurs, and public servants who shape our economies and institutions. They produce research, foster innovation, and help governments make better decisions. Investment in higher education is therefore an investment in national capacity. But the world is changing faster than universities. That's why, for me, three priorities stand out. First, universities must prepare students not just for their first job, but for lifelong learning. Technical skills will evolve rapidly, and we are witnessing those rapid changes. Graduates will need critical thinking, ethical judgment, creativity, systems thinking, and the ability to adapt. As artificial intelligence transforms every sector, these human capabilities will become even more valuable and critical. Second, we cannot afford to waste talent. Too many capable young people are excluded because of cost, geography, conflict, or the digital divide. When opportunity depends on circumstance rather than ability, countries lose innovators, entrepreneurs, and leaders they cannot afford to miss. Expanding access to quality higher education is therefore not only a matter of fairness, it is a strategic investment in productivity, resilience, and of course, sustainable development. Third, universities must engage more directly with society. They can help governments design better policies. For the HLPF, they can support voluntary national reviews, strengthen climate and urban strategies, develop local innovation, and provide evidence for public decision making. Ladies and gentlemen, knowledge has its greatest impact when it moves beyond the campus. Colleagues, the future of sustainable development will be shaped not only by finance, technology, or institutions, but by the people who lead them. The students in our universities today will become tomorrow's scientists, ministers, teachers, business leaders, and innovators. And we should invest in them now. Let me end by assuring everyone that UNDESA remains committed to strengthening partnerships among governments, universities, and the United Nations so that higher education becomes an even stronger driver of sustainable development. The most valuable resource any country possesses is its people. Higher education is where that resource is developed, and we should pay full attention to this resource. I thank you and wish you a very productive meeting today.
Thank you very much, ISG and Hanif, for your remarks and really for setting the broader sustainable development context for today's discussion. You have reminded us that higher education is not only about learning and research, but also about relevant skills, critical thinking, societal engagement, and the ability to adapt to deliver on the SDGs. So thank you so much for that. Now I would like to invite Mr. Borean Chakroun. He's the Interim Director at UNESCO IESA and the Director in the Division for Policies and Lifelong Learning Systems at the UNESCO Education Sector to deliver his opening remarks. Mr. Chakroun, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Assistant Secretary General for Economic Development, Mr. Navid Hanif, Director for the Institute for Advanced Study of Sustainability, UNU, Ms. Shinobu Yume Yamaguchi, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, partners, ladies and gentlemen, let me join Assistant Director Secretary General Navid Hanif in welcoming you to the 2026 Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, HESI Global Forum, convened as a special event of the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. Before I start, allow me first to express UNESCO's solidarity with the people of Venezuela following the recent earthquake. Our thoughts are with all those affected, including students, educators, researchers, and higher education institutions that continue to serve their community during this difficult time. Excellencies, colleagues, Assistant Secretary General just reminded us about the pivotal moment in which we are living and in which higher education is evolving. Let me also give some additional element of context. Today, nearly 269 million students are enrolled in higher education worldwide, more than double since 2000. This remarkable growth brings a shared responsibility to ensure that expansion is accompanied by quality, equity, inclusion, and relevance. Higher education itself is an inflection point. Universities are navigating profound transformation driven by technological innovation, including artificial intelligence, demographic changes, climate change, growing inequalities, and geopolitical uncertainty. At the same time, expectations of higher education has never been greater. Universities are increasingly called upon not only to educate future generation and advance research, but also to help societies anticipate change, respond to crisis, and contribute to sustainable solutions. And we have to be bold, colleagues. As UNESCO has consistently affirmed, higher education is a public good and a public responsibility. It is not only central to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 4, but as the Assistant Secretary General just mentioned, it has also a role as enabler across the entire 2030 agenda. Through research, innovation, scientific cooperation, and the preparation of future generation, universities contribute to advancing sustainable development goals in all its dimensions. And higher education institutions are among the world's greatest assets for advancing multilateral cooperation, knowledge creation, and sustainable development. Multilateralism is not only at the highest political level, it's also among institutions, among networks like the HESI network. This is why, this is what we are trying to do at UNESCO through different actions that we are taking. We just published the global report on trends in higher education, looking at how it contributes to sustainable development. We built a global observatory on higher education policies and development. We are also actively engaging in supporting mobility of student and research through our global and regional conventions on recognition of qualifications. We advance the status of higher education teaching personnel, and we are revising the recommendations that we have adopted in 1997. We have recommendations on the status of higher education researchers and scientific actors. We also advance open science. And we are offering a roadmap for the transformation of higher education, building on the outcomes of the World Higher Education Congress organized in Barcelona in 2022. And I know that many of the colleagues who are joining us today were there in Barcelona. So we have a compass that can take the transformation of higher education forward. But we, colleagues, also need to place our forum within the high-level policy forum, but also within the global debate when it comes to education. Tomorrow, we will organize the Transforming Education Summit +4. which is an opportunity not only to reflect on the commitments made in 2022, but also to translate them into actions to build more inclusive and resilient and future-ready education system, with higher education playing a central role in that transformation. Across the world, universities are working alongside governments, communities, civil society, and young people to address real-world challenges that Assistant Secretary General just mentioned. Whether advancing climate action, resilient communities, or social innovation, these partnerships demonstrate that the most effective solutions are those co-created with communities combining scientific knowledge with local experience. And this is precisely the role of HESI, for which it was created. Since its launch in 2012, HESI has grown into a global partnership bringing together more than 1,100 universities, higher education networks, and student organizations alongside the United Nations partner. It has become a global platform for connecting knowledge, partnerships, and actions to advance sustainable development. And obviously, the prominence that we are giving to SDG 17 in this context, partnership, is an important element for the discussion during our forum today. Partnerships are not simply one goal among many. They are the foundation, the glue that can enable progress across the entire 2030 agenda. And HESI demonstrates what can be achieved when universities, students, government, civil society, United Nations entity come together around shared vision for sustainable development, strengthening science policy interface, fostering innovation, and translating knowledge into action. So colleagues, looking ahead, with just 4 years remaining to achieve 2030 agenda, progress toward the sustainable development goals remaining uneven, and Assistant Secretary General mentioned that. We need to accelerate implementation, which requires stronger partnerships, evidence-informed policy making, and renewed collective actions. But our ambition should be also about the post-2030 agenda. HESI has a unique role to play in bringing together university students, United Nations partner in shaping the post-2030 agenda. HESI should also strengthen collaboration across the wider higher education ecosystem, including UNESCO chairs, UniTwins Network, the Higher Education International Academy, UN Academic Impacts, and other global partners, to build together an alliance of alliances capable of connecting knowledge, policy, and action at scale. The conversation will begin today and should therefore not only accelerate implementation, but also shape the agenda beyond 2030. Colleagues, we have the means and the structure for that purpose. Through its community of practice and 5 action groups, HESI can turn that vision into action, bringing together those stakeholders, co-develop solutions, strengthen the science policy interface, and translate local innovations into global actions. We have that. We have the means, and we need to leverage all the potential that we have as a HESI. I thank all the partners, the co-chairs of HESI, and I thank all colleagues who are joining us, the members of the HESI, and I call on them to join us in making the vision a reality. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chacron, for those very energizing messages and remarks, and also for highlighting the trends not only in higher education, but also connecting it to the broader education agenda. It's much appreciated. I now would like to invite Ms. Shinobu Yume Yamaguchi, the director of the Institute for the Advanced Study of Sustainability at UN University, to deliver her opening remarks, and this is through a pre-recorded statement. So please, you have the floor, and I'm asking my colleagues to switch on the video. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues and partners, fellow educators, young leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening from Tokyo, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone joining us from around the world today. On behalf of the United Nations University as a co-chair of HESI, it is my great honor to welcome you all to the 2026 HESI Global Forum. This is our annual flagship forum as a special event of the UN High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. We are sincerely grateful to our co-chairs, UNDESA, UNESCO, and Subitest for putting together this time. Our theme today, reimagining higher education for global transformation toward a sustainable future, sound a bit ambitious. But let us unpack and consider each of these elements as part of the reality we face. First, on the sustainable future. My question to you, what is the current level of the progress of the SDG target to be achieved 2030? Is it 50%, 30%, or much more? Well, the core SDG report just published this week. Only the 15%, 15, are on track. Unfortunately, this has declined from 18% last year. Not even a single one of the 17 SDGs is fully on track to be achieved by 2030, the current rate of progress. So, having said that, to shift this path, the second element of today's theme becomes an important key, which is global transformation. Indeed, this transformation happening around us, for example, green economies are expanding, youth leadership is rising, and digital transformation, including the use of is reshaping society. Yet, we see a massive disparity between this rapid change and our readiness for it. To give an example, a recent forecast warns that if we do not aggressively scale up the green education, the global green skills gap could leave up to 80% of the green land unfilled by 2030. Now, these two important points bring us to the core element of today's forum, reimagining higher education. Why? Because it is just not possible to solve tomorrow's education crisis using yesterday's educational models. So, to pave the way today, we will read three interconnected dimensions of higher education. First, how universities can radically transform their learning systems. Second, universities can serve as effective creators of knowledge that is inclusive and meets the need of the policymakers and the communities. And finally, third, how cross-sector partnership can deliver the measurable contributions to SDGs. At our Institute of the United Nations University, we are deeply committed to this mission through research and capacity development that empowers the communities and inform the global decision making. We have a very strong global network of 200 regional centers of expertise on education for the sustainable RCEs across the globe, and an important regional network called Promotion of Sustainability in Postgraduate Education Research Network in Asia and Pacific region. This cross-network collaboration is exactly what reimagining looks like in the practice. Ladies and gentlemen, our conversation today must extend far beyond this room. This insight generated here will directly support the forthcoming HESI this fall. And more immediately, the outcome will feed into the critical discussion at Transforming Education for, in fact, tomorrow, to be convened by the UN Secretary General and organized by our HESI co-chair, Ines. We are not only here to forecast the future, we are here trying to shape it. In this critical mission, I really appreciate your commitment. Let us work together to turn our shared mission into the reality. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention. Let's enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yamaguchi, for that, and thank you taking the time to record this statement. It's much appreciated. Those reflections are really ringing true, and to emphasize the importance of knowledge, sustainability, and institutional transformation towards higher education and sustainable development. Colleagues, this concludes the opening segments. We are very grateful to all the three opening speakers for helping us frame today's important discussions. Also, on behalf of DESA, I would like to really thank our partners, UNESCO and UNU, for their engagement in HESI that we have enjoyed for several years. So thank you so much for that. With that, I would like to move to our first session, our first substantive session of today's forum. It's entitled Transforming Higher Education Institutions and Learning for Sustainable Futures. This session will explore how higher education institutions can move from sustainability commitments to operational transformation. We have the honor to have Mr. Noah Sobe with us, the Chief of Section for Higher Education in UNESCO's education sector, who will serve as the moderator for this session. Noah, thank you so much for joining us. I now hand the floor over to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ola. It's a pleasure to be joining today. And as you heard, we're going to be looking at how higher education institutions can move from their sustainability commitments into an operational transformation that, of course, at the same time ensures that equity, inclusion, and leaving no one behind remain central commitments. We'll also be examining how sustainability can be embedded across governance, teaching and learning, curriculum design, things like student engagement, campus operations, institutional culture, etc. We'll also be giving attention to the competencies that learners need for sustainable futures, things like green skills, systems thinking, ethical reasoning, certainly digital and AI literacy, and without question, the capacity to act in partnerships, in collaboration and solidarity, with communities and other institutions. We've got a great set of speakers today. It'll be a rapid session, so we got a short amount of time. So I'm going to introduce each of our speakers in turn when I invite them to speak. So we're first going to hear from Katrine Cole, who's the UNESCO co-chair at York University in Canada. Katrine, 3 minutes, take us through your views on how higher education institutions can transform themselves and their learning systems to equip all learners with the knowledge, skills, and agency to advance sustainable development. Over to you, Katrine.
Thank you so very much, and lovely to see so many familiar names in the audience. I'm sending out my heart to you. My reaction heart is right here. Lovely to see everyone, and thanks, Noah, for the opportunity. I'm going to make 4 points in 3 minutes, so buckle up. As I'm the first speaker, I think we need to start in looking at ourselves first. If we want to transform ourselves, we need to understand ourselves better, and that means, first of all, we need to understand we're not just providers of degrees and research upon request. We are societal actors. We are providing learning and research, yes, but we are also employers. We are landholders. We are purchasers. We are conveners. We are community partners. We are conference platforms. And we really need to understand with that we have a very, very broad mandate in society. And that also comes with the responsibility. If we want to reimagine ourselves, we need to understand all of these different roles. The next one, very important nowadays, we are one of the few people and communities left that are perceived as honest brokers of information. In times of polarization and misinformation, rapid technology changes, no one knows what's really true. But when you are a professor from a university, when you are a graduate from a university, people tend to believe you at first. So with that, again, comes an ability, but it also comes a responsibility from us again to have those complicated conversations, to address things in debate and remain respectful by speaking out. So that's a very important point in my view as well. The third one, we're not just, again, providers or companies or a sector. We need to understand ourselves as communiversities, because only when the communities around us are strong, then we can be strong and we actually fulfill our mandate. And we saw that so nicely in the IIU site event yesterday. When we connect universities and communities, everyone is better off. And we need to, in that, still continue to ask when we're working with communities. We need to continue to question who are really the winners and the losers if we are moving into sustainability transformation. Who will be the ones that have an advantage out of it, but who will also be the ones that are included in all the decision making. My last point is AI. Everyone talks about AI these days, but AI is just another sustainability issue. As we survived the implementation of computers, we survived the implementation of the internet. We will get along with the implementation of AI. And we need to understand the balancing act of economic, of environmental, of social factors that are coming towards us, and need to use all of our learning from sustainability that we have over the last 30, 40 years and implement that when we're trying to deal with AI. And with that, and I'm giving one very practical takeaway for all of these 4 points and for this reflection. Everyone who is on this and who is at a university, institution of higher education, please find and see the leaders in your institutions that can make this difference and can support the sustainability transformation. And these are not always the people in the director position, the president, the vice president, all of that. You have so many leaders out there that are leading by values, partnership, and collaboration. And it is to find these people that can support this path towards 2030 and get ready for a post-2030 world where universities and all our higher education institutions play a significant role in moving forward. 3, 10.
Thank you so much, Katrine, for those brilliant, crisp points. Underscoring just how important it is that higher education, be a social actor and transform to become an even more effective social actor. Let's move next to Subarna Sivapalan, who is Associate Professor of Education, Associate Dean for Research and Knowledge Exchange at the University of Nottingham in Malaysia. Subarna, it's the same question for you. Take us through how you see higher education institutions can transform themselves to equip all learners with what they need to advance sustainable development.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Catherine. Hello, everyone. Good evening from Malaysia. It's 8:30 here. So I'd just like to set a context first here. So I'm from Malaysia, and the region that I'm in, Asia, is a very, very exciting place now. And Malaysia particularly is extremely exciting when we talk about higher education for sustainable development. So just allow me to set some context. In January this year, our Ministry of Education and Higher Education just launched the Higher Education Blueprint. And in the blueprint, we are all very excited in the higher education sector because for the very first time, the blueprint has sustainability as well as planetary health as key strategic thrusts. Right? So we have never done this before. This is the first time, and we are all looking forward to how this is actually going to pan out. Yeah. So that's some context. Secondly, accreditation. In higher education, accreditation is a very, very important issue. Catherine spoke about how we produce graduates. So similarly, in Malaysia, accreditation is really very important if we want to ensure our graduates get good placement, in the workforce. And also, what has happened in Malaysia is since November 2024, the Malaysian Qualifications Agency, so this is the foremost agency that accredits programs here in Malaysia, they have mandated for all academic programs to include education for sustainable development and value-based education within accreditation standards. So these two initiatives are really very novel in Malaysia, and I think it's a very bold step forward, right? So setting some context here so you understand where I am coming from. So I'm a person that's on the ground. I'm a lecturer, I'm a researcher, I speak a lot with students, I speak a lot with colleagues as Associate Dean of Research, and everybody is really very excited about the SDGs. Everybody is very excited to integrate this within teaching, learning and research, but there are so many different ways in which we understand these concepts, yeah? So Noah, I have, I think, 4 points, but I'll try to be very fast. And the first point is universities, I think, need to move away from whole of institution approaches. We are very familiar with the WIA, right? Whole of institution approaches, but we need to move away to a whole of systems approach. And this is because universities are very complex ecosystems. And how do we move forward, in a whole of systems approach is to apply this concept called quadruple helix, right? I'm not sure if you've heard of this term before, quadruple helix, but this is how different players or different stakeholders come together to make critical decisions to solve complex global problems. So the 4 players in the quadruple helix are the government, the industry, the academia, as well as society. So we need to see institutions of higher education moving towards employing the quadruple helix model. All right. Secondly, I have only 1 minute left, Noah says, is to get young people into the heart of the conversation. We make a lot of strategies in universities. We have beautiful strategies, of course, but to what extent are we really enabling young people to have a say in the strategies that we develop, right? So that's something for us to think about very seriously. Thirdly, in terms of teaching, learning and research, okay, we speak a lot about interdisciplinary research. We speak a lot about transdisciplinary research, interdisciplinary learning, but we often forget the importance of traditional, indigenous and local knowledge, and these need to be integrated into the curriculum to make the local context more understandable for the students. All right, and finally, this is me pitching for all the lecturers in the in all over the world who are working on sustainability education research. I think we need to make sustainability education research more mainstream. Okay, and yeah, Noah, I think those are the 4 points, and I think I'm over your 1 minute. Sorry, thank you.
But they're fabulous points, Subarna. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing those concrete initiatives and the great suggestions and insights. So we'll go next to our third speaker, Sharifa Abdelbaki, who's UNESCO Chair for Sustainable Development and Resilience at the University of Tlemcen in Algeria. Sharifa, tell us, how you see the transformations that are underway in learning systems that are accomplishing some of what we're calling for today.
Yeah, first of all, good afternoon from Algeria, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it is an honor to contribute to this important discussion from the perspective of the UNESCO Chair for Sustainable Development and Resilience at the University of Tlemcen, Algeria. We can say that higher education institutions can no longer be viewed simply as places where knowledge is transmitted. They must become living laboratories for sustainable development, where education, research, innovation, governance, and community engagement reinforce one another to create real societal impact. To achieve this transformation, we believe, as UNESCO Chair, we believe 5 priorities are essential. The first one, sustainability must become an institutional culture, not an isolated project. Too often, sustainability exists only in strategic plans or individual initiatives. Instead, it should guide institutional governance, budgeting, quality assurance, research priorities, procurement, campuses management, partnership. Every university decision should be evaluated through the lens of environmental sustainability, social inclusion, and long-term resilience. Universities must lead by example. This is the first point. The second one, sustainability should be embedded across all disciplines. Sustainable development is not only the responsibility of environmental scientists. Future engineers must design resilient infrastructure. Future economists must understand circular and green economics, etc. This requires interdisciplinary curricula that combine scientific knowledge with the system thinking, critical thinking, ethical leadership, digital competencies, artificial intelligence literacy, and problem-solving skills. The third point, we must ensure that no learner is left behind. Transformation is magnificent only if it is inclusive. For many universities across Africa and the global south, barrier remains significant: financial constraint, unequal access to digital technologies, language barrier, geographical isolation, unequal opportunities for women and vulnerable population. Inclusion, therefore, requires more than access to university. It requires equitable access to high-quality learning, digital resources, mentoring, mobility opportunities, and magnificent participation in decision-making. Every student should feel empowered to become an actor for sustainable development. The fourth point is universities must strengthen partnership with the society. This is very important. The sustainable development goals cannot be achieved by universities working alone. We need stronger collaboration between higher education institutions, government, local communities, industry, civil society, and international organizations. For example, at the University of Tlemcen, the UNESCO chair, our UNESCO chair, is collaborating with the Pan-African University, the Institute for Water, Energy and Climate Change, and different stakeholders in order to promote research and education that responds directly to regional challenges, particularly water security, climate resilience, ecosystem restoration, and sustainable resource management. We are also collaborating with the different stakeholders. Students learn not only in classroom, but also through engagement with the communities, local authorities, and practitioners, transforming knowledge into practical solutions. This model of co-creation strengthens both learning and societal resilience. Finally, we must rethink how we measure success. Universities should not be evaluated only by publication or rankings. We should also measure their contribution to sustainable development, their impact on local communities, the employability of graduates in the green economy, for example, the inclusiveness of their learning environment, and the real societal value they create. Maybe to conclude, we can say that Africa has one of the world's youngest population. This is not a challenge. It is one of the greatest opportunities of our century. If we invest today in equitable, high-quality, sustainability-oriented higher education, we are investing in future leaders capable of driving innovation, resilience, peace, and sustainable prosperity. Higher education institutions must therefore educate not only graduates, but responsible citizens, ethical leaders, innovators, and agents of change, because achieving the SDGs is ultimately not only about transforming our universities, it is about empowering people to transform our societies. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for those great points, Sharif. I really appreciate them, taking us through, the importance of partnerships, also reaching every student and making sure no one's left behind, and providing, a nice bridge to the next part of our short session here, where we're going to begin by looking at green skills, workforce transition, sustainability competencies. So HESI, as many of you will know, has some very active and important action groups, and we're pleased to be joined by the chair and co-chair of two of those groups today, who are going to talk us through some of the concrete ways that these action groups are working on helping institutions move their commitments to implementation. And first, we'll hear from Deborah Rowe, who's the co-chair of the Education for Green Jobs Action Group at HESI. Over to you, Deborah.
Hi there. I'm actually going to cut my time short because I have spent time with our action groups compiling a list of effective resources that you can use to better connect with people, to get more empowered, and to have more positive impacts. I agree with everything the speaker said today. We have resources for all of those. So just go to tinyurl.com/useful resource list. I put it in the chat, but it's also for people who are just listening. It's tinyurl.com/useful resource list. It's not comprehensive. There's so much that's out there that is good. Please don't feel that you need to stop because you're not an expert at everything. We are all learning as we move forward as change makers for a more sustainable future for all. We're learning how to be better change makers. We're empowering our students, our communities, our broader coalitions on how to be better change makers. And we see this as an essential skill, not only in the green jobs, not only in the sustainability jobs, but in our adult roles that we get educated for as community member, as worker, as sometimes entrepreneur, as consumer, as part of building the circular economy, as investor, and in civic engagement in our political systems. So please enjoy those resources. You'll see communities that you can connect to, support communities for you. And I will stop there and look forward to you making use of those resources, tinyurl.com/useful resource list. Thank you.
That's a win to secure that URL, Deborah. Congratulations, and thank you for sharing that and preparing that, you and of course the whole team that's behind that action group. So we'll now get to hear from Kathleen Ng, who's the co-chair of the Rankings, Ratings, and Assessment Action Group at HESI. Take us through, Kathleen, the work you're doing to help institutions move from commitments to implementation.
Thank you, Noah, and thank you to everyone on this lovely panel. It's so great to work with people like you over all these years. And just a summary with regards to the ratings, rankings, and assessments groups. I think, formerly working in the university sustainability offices, we really believe in all of the things that we had spoke about today with regards to, reflecting back on ourselves as institutional leaders in our community as universities, and looking at incentives to ensure that accountability is there for people, looking at rankings, ratings, and assessments as an opportunity to look at ourselves and see how we can do better. A lot of the things that were mentioned today are in ratings, rankings, and assessments to varying degrees, and it's so great to have a roundtable of world-leading international organizations like the Times Higher Education, like QS, like Corporate Knights and the Financial Times. I see David Steingard from PRME is here, so he can speak later about the work that they're doing. But it's a coalition of the willing. And I think a couple of thoughts. We have been over the past couple of years looking to see how we can better integrate the data that's being collected by organizations like ourselves, as well as, we've been talking about sustainability knowledge for the longest time, which is the work that Suli tests here that we're doing to ensure that universities are graduating students with the knowledge, skills, and competencies that when they graduate, they can demonstrate that, yes, my university has prepared me for this. So the work has begun. I think the challenge right now is broadening out the implementation of holistic ratings, rankings, and assessments. We did come out with guidance 5 years ago to ratings, rankings, and assessment organizations with regards to how they design these things to make sure they're transparent, to make sure they're whole of institutions, and to also engage in assessing how universities are engaging with the communities around them, transdisciplinary research, et cetera, et cetera. I think the interesting point that we've been trying to do is trying to look at it more holistically from a systems level view. So a couple of years ago, for example, we were thinking about how to have all the ratings, rankings, and assessment orgs provide data with regards to climate as a common indicator. And now, in recent conversations with UNESCO, with our work at the Greening Education Partnership, looking at the JEP dashboard as an opportunity to highlight the work that higher education institutions are bringing more broadly on a whole of world, and working with UNESCO with regards to the Global Higher Education Observatory, and looking to see how we can also work with our partners to integrate the newest and latest coming up in this space with regards to the Global Higher Education Summit that's coming out next week with the consensus statement, coming up with the Transforming Higher Education Roadmap that UNESCO came out with earlier this year, and looking to see how we can better implement all of these things into our ratings, rankings, and assessments, but in a more rather whole of systems approach rather than a whole of institution approach, which has been around for a long time. So exciting work, and we encourage especially regional and national assessment organizations to participate. We do have a lot of engagement of international groups and local groups from business and innovation, but we need more people on board. We need to work with quality assurance and accreditation organizations, so that's in the work plan as well, and integrating, the weak signals that were mentioned earlier today that are not currently things. We need ratings, rankings, and assessments to be undertaken again. Self-reflection, how are we doing according to how we were a few years ago, not competing with others, and collaboration and coherence amongst all of us, not just checking off a list, but doing better as a whole.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, for those crisp and really comprehensive points, particularly taking us through all the important, exciting things that are happening. I mean, in these very weeks, and in the communities that are assembled here. I appreciate you mentioning the UNESCO roadmap on higher education transformation, which definitely takes the systems level view that you've been talking about. I'm going to ask a colleague to put a link to that in the chat. And please join me in thanking our amazing speakers for this session. So whether you want to just clap in the air or send a reaction in, we really appreciate all these inputs. And it's my pleasure now to pass on to our next session, which is going to look at universities as knowledge producers and co-creators. It's going to explore how we connect research, policy, and practice. So I'm going to now pass to my colleague Jungwee Park from UNU to moderate the next section. Over to you, Jungwee.
Thank you very much, Noah, for the great session. We just have reimagined learning system of higher education for sustainable future, thanks to Noah and the great panelists in the previous session. Now we are moving on to reimagining higher education as knowledge co-creator and how universities can effectively connect research, policy, and practice. For that, we have a really great panelist, just like the previous session. We have Miss Melissa Brown, Deputy Director of Macmillan Center of Yale University. We have Mr. David Steingard from the head of Prime. Do we have Mr. Dong-Sung Cho with us today? Okay, so I think we are missing one speaker, but I think that's okay. So it's the same format like the previous session. We will have two panelist opinions and their own organizations as knowledge co-creator of as a higher education sector, followed by our great leaders of action groups on how they actually put this into practice. So let's start with Melissa. Are you ready, Melissa? So how does your university work as co-creator of knowledge with the society and also ensure that research and innovation are accessible, inclusive, and useful for not just university people, but communities and policymakers for sustainable future sustainable development? So Melissa, the floor is yours, and you have only 4 minutes, sorry.
Oh, 4 minutes. Excellent. Let me just make sure that I can share. Can we see my screen? There we go. Is my screen visible right now?
Yes.
Great. The fabulous news is that a lot of my most passionate points have already been stated, so some of my remarks will certainly substantiate some of what's already been shared. My soapbox that I have been very passionate about for years is that universities are the knowledge sector. We're very different from civil society, public sector, and private sector. because of our dedication to knowledge generation and dissemination. And what was iterated before about values, partnership, and collaboration is certainly part of that narrative as well. As the knowledge sector, the research that we're doing is creating and testing solutions. We are teaching tomorrow's leaders. Every single person, I'm guessing, on this call is either a graduate of a university or is in university. And it's important to recognize that every single one of our policymakers in the world has gone through university, and then or college or university, higher education, and then contributing knowledge and resources locally and globally. I was really heartened to hear about the community connections that other people were talking about this morning. In terms of barriers and assumptions, we discussed this on our prep call, and I just wanted to put together a couple of key points about barriers and assumptions, academic limitations. This is a map of academic freedom by country, and you can see that there are government restrictions in quite a few countries around the world in terms of sharing the knowledge we generate. The other thing is that there is imbalanced representation. This is not entirely fresh data. Many people on this call probably have already heard about this, but in a few years ago, I think it was 2021 or 2022, the Reuters Hot List was published of the top 1,000 climate scientists. And the distribution of who is most often quoted in media is not at all representative of the world. It's very heavily weighted toward North America and Western Europe, and the gender gap is exceptionally strong. It's about 10% female. In terms of assumptions, the science policy interface is something that comes up a lot when talking about engaging universities in the UN system. And there are flaws with this because research is often empirical and not necessarily applied. Faculty members don't always know how to translate their results. Policymakers also frequently do not know how to ask the questions that they need answered by academia. Access to the UN system and other decision makers is frequently limited for higher education. Access to resources is also unequal. Lots of folks in the global south, for example, cannot access databases of resources and publications. And then social sciences and humanities are also frequently overlooked. And I am realizing that I'm already at 3 minutes. So I'm going to slide through this because this has already been said a little bit, but global challenges are not caused globally. There is a huge gap, and there's a need to really help to translate what needs to be done to local folks. Some examples of what we've done at Yale University: we launched the Global University Climate Forum along with a lot of partners throughout the world. And the idea was to encourage students to develop their own ideas for measurable projects that would yield outputs over the course of 6 months to a year in the context of the global climate negotiations. We also did an analysis of how Yale's faculty members connect to the Sustainable Development Goals, not support, but their research, because some of them hadn't even heard of the SDGs when we started this, how their research really connects to the solutions that are being sought. Most recently, we've launched the Regional Futures Lab. I apologize, I'm about to go to the 5-minute mark, but I'm almost done. Regional Futures Lab, we've done things like launch a program centered around food, where we bring international chefs to campus, have them train culinary staff, give lectures, etc., all around sustainability, community, culture, and food. And we also most recently launched the Regional Futures Lab, where we select students from all disciplines at various stages of their academic careers to really explore where regional solutions can help bridge the gap between global and local. And this is an opportunity for them as emerging professionals. We also allow them to select their topics in their regions. So I will conclude with recommendations, ideas for considerations. Higher education institutions should not follow. We should inform, test, and challenge. We should be analyzing whether or not things are as robust as they should be. Higher education can be allies and conduits for change, connecting with communities. And then we have to, and this has already been iterated, but I want to just really emphasize this. This is not about creating green jobs or just isolating environmental studies. We really need students, doctors, bankers, lawyers, everyone from all disciplines to understand their role. And I will conclude with that and pass to my colleague.
Thank you very much, Melissa. You started with a very stark reality of imbalance in presentation, but you ended with really great hopes. And I'm looking at your programs at Yale. I almost like wanted to enroll in those programs actually, because it's very exciting. So thank you very much, Melissa, for sharing how Yale is co-creating knowledge, co-creating innovation together with youth and also communities. Thank you so much. Now we are moving on to David. David, I'm asking the same question, but you are from the UN perspective right now. So how your organization now is helping connecting the research innovation with the society and make the knowledge useful for our community and society. The floor is yours, and you have 4 minutes too. Thank you.
Hello. Jomi, I had a little problem with the slides here, so I will just talk through what has been happening with Prime. No problem. As you know, Prime has been a longtime member of HESI, and Prime are the 850 business schools around the world that are committed to SDGs and the 7 principles of Prime. Formed in 2007, next year will be 20 years. Oh, there we go. That's good. I can see it now. Perfect. So this, the idea now is that in terms of partnerships and transforming a knowledge ecosystem, Prime is now fully integrated with the United Nations One Global Compact. And I'll explain that in a minute. Next slide, please. So there is Prime, our principles. There we go. So this is the, this is Prime. Next slide, please. Keeping with my 4 minutes here. The unique aspect of Prime is it is embedded in the 20,000 largest companies in the world that are committed to 10 principles of sustainable business and the SDGs. And you can see they're grouped into those 4 subgroups. And the global economy has half of its output of $126 trillion in 3,000 companies, many of which are on the platform. So the possibilities for transformation here are endless. Next slide, please. So for the first time, the compact strategy going from now until 2030 is to specifically include Prime in advancing the business case. And the business case is a unit of analysis that takes the best practices of business in sustainability, documents them, and promulgates them so the world can learn and evolve. Please, next slide. So currently, there are 60 cases of the best practices of sustainable companies that are undergirded by principles and SDGs. Next slide, please. And these are from all over the world, and I like the regional focus of some of the conversation today because real solutions have to live in real places with real people. Next slide, please. And here's some more, and they are basically in this kind of rhythm. There's a company with an innovation targeting a specific human rights, labor, gender equity, and there is knowledge that is now going to be captured by Prime as an academic arm. Next slide, please. And this, what you see before you, is the work of almost 6 months of an agreed upon foundation, a framework, a rubric, if you will, to capture what is actually happening in the best practices of business and sustainability in various regions around the world. So this framework will be used to write up cases from company perspectives, from research perspectives. There's a whole student aim to flourish engagement here. And what is really exciting is that the practice of sustainable business and the study and promulgation of it in academia now have come together, and we're very excited about the future.
Okay, so that's it, David. Thank you so much. for the presentation. And yeah, so it's how the UN Prime is acting as the mediator between the universities and business sector is really amazing. And the case study website, if you can actually put the URL in the chat box, I think that will be really appreciated. It's very, very useful resources, even for UNU. So I will take a look at it. Now, can you show the slide of our session cover, Lara? Now we have two action group leaders here. Yes, the slide. Yeah. So we have two action group leaders here, just like the previous session format. We have Mr. Doug Spatt from the University of Westminster from the UK, head of School of Media and Communication. And he is actually leading one of the implementation team of the AI and Futures of Higher Education Action Group. And he will now enlighten us about how this action group on futures of higher education and AI has been practicing co-creation of knowledge and informing the policymakers and so on. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope I can indeed enlighten, although that's quite a big ask, isn't it? No slides from me. I just want to talk through some of the things that we've been thinking about and working on in our action group. And one of the areas that we've been particularly focusing on is the adoption of AI within universities and where those limits are. But I think for this particular session, our founding principle of where we started that work is what's key, because actually we started from a perspective that it's how a university adopts AI that is itself a form of knowledge production. So as universities, as places of research and of teaching, we're not just using technologies, we're not just engaging with them, but we're actually become models for how society and how the relationships between evidence, policy and practice should be working. And if we get that wrong internally inside our universities, we actually undermine our own credibility of how we might inform that externally. So I think it's really useful to have the research, policy and practice as terms here to draw upon. So I'll just talk a little bit about research first. The integrity of that evidence that we produce now depends on, more than ever, the integrity of our data infrastructures. And so when we're looking at the AI adoption and other things inside universities, we found that actually many universities were still working on fragmented legacy systems. And if we layer AIs over the top of this poor unstructured data, that's where we get the worst results. That's where we get biased results. That's where we get false narratives. And so we're pushing for the idea that actually to get research equitable, to get research in a place where we can do good and productive knowledge exchange and co-creation, we first actually need to make sure our data infrastructures are suitable and well put together. Otherwise, if we're scaling at the rate that we can scale with AI, we're scaling problems rather than solutions. So I don't want to start too negative, but there is that underlying issue that we need to deal with in higher education. Not an easy one. In policy, I think we need to think about how we inform the policies that we set for ourselves. You know, we're increasingly as universities asked to feed into evidence on public policy on AI. But actually, at the moment, most universities are still struggling for our own internal governance structures. So we are absolutely the right people in many ways to be feeding into that. But there is that credibility gap when we haven't got it right internally ourselves as well. So in a brief that we are in the process of publishing, we're pushing for a risk-based, proportionate governance within higher education. Light touch for low-risk operations, but with really strong safeguards. Lots of human review, lots of bias auditing, lots of appeal routes, and particularly when that comes into contact with students, but also any kind of knowledge production, we would want to see those robust things there, but not in a way that would limit what we can do with AI. So there should be a freedom around challenging the assumptions to inform policy that we can only do if we get that balance right. And then that sort of practice side of things, well, knowledge only really connects to practice if people can act on it. And that requires a degree of literacy rather than just access. I think we've focused for many, many years on access, and we are increasingly focusing on literacy. AI in higher education and the world has changed what access and what literacy means. And so we're talking about in our brief and our work about tiered AI literacy, thinking about governance awareness for leaders, applied skills for staff and for colleagues, critical evaluation for students, and how those three things can come together to actually create a much more robust way of thinking about what policy actually can do, so that we can have things that that people can act upon. And so this is sort of a chain between that research, that policy, and that practice things. And that really essentially all comes down to then how we disseminate that. And AI in publishing, just to touch upon that, yes, it can absolutely widen who gets read and who gets cited, or it can completely reinforce the same voices every single time. But if we get it right inside our internal governance inside universities, and then push that into the policy space, then we can actually influence how that dissemination world is working as well. So our action group is really pushing for some concrete guidance for universities, for higher education policymakers around what strengthens that process of creating knowledge, good infrastructure, disseminating knowledge, good understanding of those biases, and then reaching new and better audiences for that work as well. And I think I'll leave that there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doug, for your summary of the policy brief that is on the way. This action group on futures of higher education and AI is very productive at the moment so far. And then they are actually producing this policy brief together with UNU. And as Doug said, it's absolutely right. I mean, higher education shouldn't be just participating in the AI development, but we have to be the shaper of the AI development so that we don't just follow what IT company is doing and imposing to us, right? And the policy brief and how we can inform the policy as higher education sector is really, really important. So thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this publication to come out. Now we have Latna from the action group on publishers, SDG Publishers Compact. I just noticed that we have the third speaker joined, but I think he also still has some technical issues. So why don't we still do the responses from the action group? We listen to Latna on how the SDG Publishers Compact actually playing a role in connecting policy community and the society with the knowledge of sustainable development that the action group has gained. She is, Ms. Latna is the professor from Telkom University. The floor is yours and 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jung-Wee. To truly advance the 2030 agenda, we at the SDG Publisher Compact Fellows Action Group must pivot from merely generating knowledge to actively translating it into accessible, real-world impact. And the philosophy drives our top action tips. I noticed Deborah in the chat. She put the link to our SDG Publisher Compact Fellows top action tips. These tips provide actionable best practices for integrating sustainability into research, educational content, and policy outreach, because global challenges evolve rapidly. And we continuously update these living documents to ensure they reflect the latest best practices. So please go to the action tips, SDG Compact Fellows, the top action tips. And building on this framework, we must focus on 3 core areas to make innovation more inclusive and useful. First, we must leverage AI, as Doc told us earlier, for more broad accessibility, because the access, I think the access is the most important thing, especially for us in the global South. I'm in Indonesia. We should utilize AI not just for data analytics, analysis, but to break down the language barrier, because we sometimes have a very difficult, especially for my students, to speak in English, yeah, and simplify the academic jargon with this AI by supporting open digital platforms and community-based living labs. We ensure high-level research actually reach practitioners on the ground. That's the first one. The second one, we must bridge the gap between research and policy. To address the better utilization of research for the SDGs, we at the SDG Compact Fellows, Publisher Compact Fellows, recently held highly productive meetings with the OECD and Google Scholar. Our shared goal is to create structural changes, championing academic indices and search algorithms that prioritize tangible societal impact right alongside traditional citations. And finally, we must mainstream sustainability into core learning materials. This is the driving force behind our textbook and learning products initiative in SDG Publisher Compact Fellows, aiming to weave the SDGs into the fabric of global education, empowering learners everywhere with the knowledge and mindset to build a more equitable and resilient world for all. We have exciting updates on this front, including promising collaborative efforts with major publishers like Cengage, and the integration of the Engineering for One Planet framework to ensure sustainability is embedded right at the foundational level. So for me, we are here to talk, to discuss. So let's build the best future for the next generation. Thank you, Jung-Wee.
Thank you so much, Latna, for your powerful sharing of what the Action Group SDG Global Compact is currently doing. SDG Compact Publisher is doing. It's actually, you brought very, very unique perspective from the Global South, what the implication is for the AI development in the Global South, which we haven't really discussed in this session. So it was really, really insightful. And I cannot be more proud of our action groups here, because just Doug and Ratna, both of you just shared the really, really useful resources that you have created as an action group under the HESI framework. And it has to be really, really great. I see a lot of thumbs ups in the chat, and then I'm sure they were going to use your resources that action groups has been produced. So I'm so proud of our action groups. And thank you so much. Now we are moving on to the last speaker of the panel. Professor Cho Dong-sung is from South Korea, a professor from Assist University, Seoul School of Integrated Science and Technology. And we have the same question, Professor Cho, on how universities are actually co-producing, taking a role of co-producing the knowledge, co-creating the knowledge together with communities and make the knowledge more inclusive and accessible to everyone. The floor is yours and you have 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can I share the PowerPoint?
Yes, please.
Okay, do you have it? Is it shown? Well, actually, what I'd like to show is the rankings of the universities over the last 40 years, and most recently in the last few years, plus future. As you know, the ranking system of the universities started 43 years ago by US News and World Report on American universities only. But then in 2003, world universities were started to be ranked by Shanghai Jiao Tong University in the name of ARW. And then two major rankings, THE and QS, were split into two independent pieces in 2010, and they have been more or less dominating the ranking field. In 2014, one of very innovative rankings started in the name of U multi-rank. That means the universities are not pursuing only one dimensional direction, but multi. So we should take into account the kind of variety or diversity of the university's philosophy and value systems. And then in 2020, I started a kind of rebellious ranking system called URI. URI stands for World University Rankings for Innovation. And this ranking is not for the kind of traditional major universities like Harvard, Stanford, and MIT, but along these ranking systems, any universities in the world, whether being small or large, being young or old, being in urban city or in countryside, any university can become number one. How we can do it? By looking at the future rather than the past. Therefore, we do not collect a single piece of statistics that reflect the past. Instead, we are collecting cases, Harvard Business School-like cases of universities on their effort for innovation. So we collect these cases and then distribute them and circulate them among the participants. Therefore, it becomes learning because we are gathering the best practices of the world, universities, and circulating them among those who have submitted at least one of these cases. And then we continue to innovate these ranking systems by adopting the user-centric view. Instead of university president or administrators, we let the students, industries around the universities to write cases of what they have been getting from the universities around. And also, we found out that this innovative ranking system is not only reporting what has been done in the university, but instead it is leading, it is driving innovation of the universities, because we have developed a very systematic, comprehensive, innovative programs so that those who are applying our models can find that there are some areas that are missing in their innovative effort. Therefore, we're actually making universities be more comprehensively and systematically innovative. And also, compared to other ranking systems which only collect case statistics, which are taken care of by the administrators and staff, we are collecting cases which are most often written and prepared by the professors. So professors started to actively participating in this case writing effort of ranking systems. And therefore, as they participate in these ranking systems by writing cases, they become interested in conducting research, how the rankings and innovation affect the result of the universities in terms of research and education. So they start to generate research papers. We have been collecting hundreds of these papers already. And then as we continue to innovate, we have increased the axis or dimensions of ranking systems from for whom to innovate, like students and industry and society, to the second axis of how to innovate, whether president himself or herself is innovating or not, and environment, resource, and mechanism. And then we have added the third axis of what to innovate, research, education, and social service and commercialization. And then as we go through, we found out that one of these ranking criteria has become a torchlight. What that means is, take, for example, MIT and Stanford. MIT and Stanford stand out among universities not because they write more research papers than other universities. Rather, MIT is known for its Manhattan Project started in 1936, which resulted in the atomic bomb in 1945, for which MIT has become the #1 engineering school. Stanford, for example, has been focused, the importance of sort of design thinking, with which professors, students, and everybody started to make startups in the Silicon Valley. That's the kind of torchlight that leads all the universities toward one direction. And then we started to rank presidents, vice presidents, and provosts, the directors of computer center, directors of library, and so on. So we are indeed ranking not only the schools, but also the people, and also majors. And then finally, we have found a new fourth axis, that is, with whom to innovate. Actually, most universities are working with the national government and the Ministry of Education on their efforts toward higher education. And indeed, the kind of collaboration between the government and the university, between the international organizations such as UN and the universities, and certainly together with the university federations and universities, and among the universities. So this with whom to innovate has become very important. And now accreditation and validation has become the kind of result.
Sorry, Professor Joe, can you
And then
wrap up?
startup, finally. So indeed, this ranking system has expedited the process by which professors, students, and even staff people have started to create startups. So it has become a very fertile basis on which universities have been moving toward various directions. So with this ranking, we believe we have moved from evolutionary stage to a revolutionary stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Cho. I think it's a perfect wrap-up of the session, actually, how the co-creation of the knowledge among and within the universities, especially using the ranking system, which was not really friendly to many universities, but now you're turning this ranking system into the co-creation of knowledge kind of platform by creating cases and research papers out of this, cases and rankings. So I think it's very innovative, and I see many invitations here and there already coming through to know more about what this Professor Cho's team is currently doing. So thank you very much for everyone, and Dr. Cho also for this really innovative and exciting contributions on the co-creation of knowledge by university sector with the society and communities. And now I think we cannot do the co-creation of knowledge without the partnership, right? So now we are moving on to reimagining our higher education as a partnership platform, together with our one of the co-chairs of HESI, Mr. JC Katerong will moderate the third session on the partnership. So again, thank you very much for all the panelists, and let's move on to session 3. JC?
Thank you so much, Jongwei. Thanks all the panelists. Good evening, everyone. As a co-chair of HESI, I'm truly delighted that the session I have the honor to moderate today with you. It's on a topic that means so much for me, which is partnerships. And since the beginning of HESI, the Rio +20 conference in 2012, this has been at the heart of what we do. As Brian mentioned during the opening session, HESI is a kind of alliance of alliance. And as you have seen in the previous sessions, our goal at HESI is to bring together different groups, networks, initiatives, and even UN entities to create synergies, to help organizations work on projects that none of them could achieve alone. So with my fellow co-chairs, we always believe that on one thing, individual success is rare when facing global challenges. And SDG 17 for us, partnerships, is not just one goal among 17, it's the engine to drive all the other. But to be honest, who could be against collaboration and partnerships? No one, in theory. But in practices, we all know that it's not so simple, and there is no magical formula between academic timelines, operational urgency, between institutional culture, power imbalance. Making partnership work is often harder than just signing an agreement. So this is why on this specific session, we won't just celebrate success story. And I've asked our speakers, and thanks to all of them to play the game. And we will explore the behind the scene, the challenges overcome, the real world dilemmas, and the lesson that we can learn from that. So let's start with our speakers. So I'm going to do something a little bit different from the two first session. I will give them 2 minutes, but we will have different rounds. So the first question will be for each of you to tell us about a specific problem that your partnership aims to solve. Then describe the partnership and who is involved and how it works. And finally, share the first result of where you are now or where you will be soon. So first, I will begin with Satesh Bediazi, Professor and Dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine at St. George University in Grenada. So Satesh, I know that for decades now you have created a unique partnership between university, ministries, regional public health, and even international collaboration. So could you please share your initiative?
Thank you, JC. Thank you, JC. Thank you, everyone, for the significant work you are engaged in for sustainable development, and congratulations to UNDESA, HESI on this essential initiative. From St. George's University perspective, we partner with Grenada and the small island developing states in the Eastern Caribbean, particularly focused on One Health, because at our university, we have sympatrically located schools of medicine, veterinary medicine, public health, and allied health sciences. So it does foster for that interdisciplinary collaborative approach. With Grenada, we're able to work on shared research opportunities, working on public health interventions, which supports our students' training, but also capacity building for the island and also our regional partners. Meaningful opportunities have developed progressively through partnerships. They include strengthening capacity for disease prevention and surveillance, health education, promotion, and workforce preparedness. Really, in short, the interdisciplinary approach through partnerships allows for training, community partnerships, and contributes really to a healthier, more resilient community for Grenada and the Caribbean region that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Satesh. Dr. Ana Margarida Costa, you are the Chief Sustainability Officer, and you are also Professor of Sustainability at KAUST in Saudi Arabia. And you will talk about an amazing partnership between KAUST, UNDP, and the youth. Hannah, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. A great session. So in brief, yes, we started a few years ago an amazing partnership between KAUST and UNDP Saudi Arabia and Frontiers for Young Minds. And I was just explaining in brief, and I'm also going to share a resource in the chat. So what was the mindset behind this partnership? Universities create knowledge, and partnerships create impact. So for us, the knowledge needs to have to be transferred in the scientific knowledge that we create, that needs to transfer to society in an approachable way. The best way is actually to engage and partner with another group in our joint partnership with children. So what we challenge our scientists at the universities to translate their science for children. So all the research they're doing in a language they can understand. And the children actually were official reviewers of their work. They were asking questions. And so this research was about the SDGs, how science can support the Sustainable Development Goals. So we created a collection, the SDG collection, that allows for each SDG to tell a story, a very nice story with actually very nice cartoons in a simple language that was actually challenged by our own children, because we have a school from K1 to grade 12 in KAUST. So our children would challenge our scientists. And also the power of this partnership was to be able to have a publisher that would put for free these resources online to be available for everyone in the world, to have the collaboration for UNDP, to have a clear review of the alignment with 2030 agenda, and KAUST that provides a scientific contact for all of that for our scientists and our amazing partners as well, the young children. So this is actually a collection that was created to simplify the science behind the SDGs, to be open to everyone. And I challenge everyone here on the call, I will share the link, to go and explore this resource and to actually disseminate across your own communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, really inspiring. Mrs. Ilma Rantilia-Alwil, you are the UNESCO Chair on Sustainable Water Research for Climate Adaptation and Saline Agriculture in Arid Environment in Namibia, at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. So could you please explain us your partnership? You're muted, sorry. No.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My partnership, I would like to share an example for one of the activities that we have been working on geothermal energy. Now, the first partnership that we have done, we work together in the university. Now, in the university, we partner with, let me say, I'm from the field of agriculture. Then I look at the field that is on physics and the field in engineering and so forth. Then we come up with this one idea. And then we partner also with South African University and also with the Botswana University, of which now our university, where we come up with the short courses. One, it's on geothermal energy. Okay, we also had the other one on green hydrogen, because we were more focusing on green energy actually. Okay, and the first thing that we have done, at the end, we end up partnering again with community, where we have to go now and sample, because we were looking for hot spring. Now we go to different community where we sample soil, because now we want to look at in which area where we are going to find that peak energy, where we can determine maybe there's a potential for geothermal production. And then we partner with community. At the end of the day, we ended up again in another circle where we have to partner with the Ministry of Education and UNESCO, NATCOM office. And then now when we went to meet with the Ministry of Education is when now we are given more tasks. And then we were asked, no, you cannot only sample one area, you need to sample all regions. Meaning that at the end, we found out this is a need for the country to have other source of energy within the country, of which now that we have done, and then we have started testing the samples, and then we have tested the water quality, but the project is still in the pipeline. We only managed to do the short training for all the youth, the one from Namibia, from Botswana, and the one from South Africa. But the project is still ongoing, because now we are going to partner with international institute so that we can visit those countries where we can find that geothermal power plant. And then we look at how do we work on it. And that is where now we can partner again with departments of engineering, because that is now their strong initiative. Now at the end, again, we need to go back to the community, and then we look at how will this specific green energy production impact the community? Is it of good benefit or not? And at the end of the day, can we give out something that turn into job creation? If we find out that it work well, then we create job, then community benefit, and then we'll have also international scientists that can come. Then we share this type of knowledge amongst each other. I thank you.
Thank you so much. And we see that partnership, organizing partnership really give lots of increase the impact of what we do for sure. And actually something that we are really focus in HESI is really to switch from best practices, local best practices to massification. I think the example that you just shared it's linked to that. So those were the nice part of the partnership, but as I mentioned, of course, nothing is easy. So I will start with Satesh with, again, a concrete challenge that you faced or you're still facing, by the way, and in order to make that work, and how you manage or you try to manage this kind of challenge. So Satesh, please, in 2 minutes. Oh, muted. Sorry, Satesh. You're muted.
I'm sorry, guys. So academics, as we all know, we work within semester schedules. We have our own research timelines. We have academic program projections for students. That is not necessarily aligned with that of government agencies or even the needs of the communities. They tend to have more of an immediate type of operational reality as opposed to some type of scheduled, sequential, chronological timeline. That does pose a challenge to us at times, especially when active engagement falls outside of academic structured types of schedules. To address this challenge, it's really about establishing expectations upfront, very early, so that we're clear and we are aware, but also, regardless of structures, as academics, again, we are adaptable. There are opportunities for us to work within the context of community needs outside of the schedule timelines. That is particularly important. All of this, though, is really based on establishing common goals, ensuring that you're engaged, because that negates any restrictions about timelines and schedules as well. But ultimately, partnerships, from our experience, is about embracing the flexibility, and with a shared common purpose, we're able to overcome. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Satesh. And I think, Anna, for the partnership you were explaining, I'm sure you have also some challenges working with big UN organization and kids, for sure. Tell us more, please.
It was quite fun. It was kind of fun project. I think the biggest challenge actually came from the scientists. They are not able to communicate to a normal audience. You know, it's difficult to translate. We have the same issue with the policy side. So imagine asking them to pick up a research paper and now write for children. Actually, writing for children, actually it's writing for the general audience. That was the first challenge. They don't know how to do that. Actually, it was actually great exercise for our students doing PhDs and masters to be able to translate what they are doing in a simple language. That was the first challenge we had. I think was a learning curve for them, and actually we succeed at the end, but it was challenging. The second part, just to highlight, we complete the collection. We have a collection with 17 papers. We are now reaching to 260,000 viewers from around the world, and we are increasing every day. So the challenge is not only to measure the impact by the number of views, but also to create resources. So we are now in the stage to create materials for teachers in the classroom, parents, to use these resources in the classroom, to look to this research that is happening for each SDG, understand how this research is relevant to achieve a sustainable challenge and a goal from our planet. So this is what we are doing right now, creating these resources, and hopefully this will create even further impact beyond the hits and the readings that we want to have as well.
Thank you so much, Anna. In 2 minutes, Ilma, same thing. What were the biggest challenges in your project? You are still muted. Sorry.
My apology. The biggest challenge in my project is scientists not willing to work together. Where this one who is in this line of specialization believe they understand better than the others, of which now we have to make each other understand that for you to be able to achieve a goal, you cannot work individually. You need different knowledge in order to solve a problem or even to come up with a solution. The second one that I have is that for us to sample the whole Namibia, the country is so huge, is so big. So we have to start from the north to east to west and so forth. That was a serious challenge because it takes too much time to do that. But anyway, at the end of the day, we managed to succeed to sample Namibia, especially the soil. And the last challenge is the equipment that we are using for analysis. We have one, and then now when it's broken, again, we need to wait for a very long period of time. But now we need to partner with the Ministry of Health because I've noticed they do have one equipment so that we see how can they meet us halfway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ilma. I will just, we are a little bit short on time, sorry. Before giving you the last turn for 1 minute to give us a good an advice that you can share with the community, I just want to share a short video from one on this third session on partnership. You know that we for years we are partnering with one amazing project which is called the Green Gone World, organized by HESI, and we are fortunate to have a short video from Leo from Tecmilenio University in Mexico, and they are one of the finalists. I will put the link of the HESI next Green Gone World on the chat. But have a video. Let's put the video and then we're going to conclude. Thank you. Hola. Oh, no. I don't know his text by heart, so I can't say what he was saying. So we need the sound. Ah. Well, I'm so sorry. Ola, just tell me if you think we have a chance. Otherwise, we will put that, of course, on the HESI website with all the resources. Ola? Apologize. Okay. Well, sorry.
Yeah, JC, should I try
Yeah.
from my screen? 1 second.
Yes, please try.
Let's see.
Gosh, it was working. Yeah.
Did you hear that?
No, there is nothing. There is no sound.
No. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Patricia. Let me re-share. Share. Okay.
Sorry for that. It's always like that when we are late.
Yeah. Okay. I think now. So just shout out if you can't hear it.
At Tecmilenio, purpose and practice go together. Our campus choices shape our students. I am Leo Velázquez, Director of Planning and Transformation at Tecmilenio University. Our project is Sustainable Campus Transformation, Energy, Water, and Environmental Action, finalist of the 2026 International Green Gown Awards. This project proves our commitment to students in every campus we build and run. Before 2021, each campus managed energy alone. Today, 32 campuses work as one system. Through partnerships with the energy sector, we now get 42% of our electricity from clean energy. That advances SDG 7. We replaced old lights with energy-saving systems. We treat and reuse water, and savings go to learning and student well-being. We check environmental and educational impact before we invest. Sustainability guides how we decide. We also advance SDG 17. Our National Declaration for Climate Action brings together Mexican universities and the energy sector. Clean energy and shared accountability are becoming standard, not exceptions. At Tech Millennium, caring for our planet is not extra. It is how we make room for learning. It is how we lead by example. Our students need proof that change is possible. Our campuses are that proof. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ola, to succeed for this video. And what we love in this example, and actually it resonates with what our panel say, is that sometime when you are able to build partnership, you break silos, and then by breaking silos, you increase the impact of what you want to do, but also the number of people or stakeholders who actually benefit from what we do. So just to conclude, I will give you 1 minute each, where we would like you to share on a concrete piece of advice for university or organization looking to launch a partnership. And we will use that advice and integrate that to the HESI Snapshot 26. So it should be really impactful and practical. Satesh, again, you're going to start, please. One advice.
Build relationships before projects. That allows for a foundation which will sustain a partnership when challenges will inevitably rise. Thank you.
I like that one. Thank you so much, Satesh. Anna, please.
Well,
what advice?
I would, yeah. So for us, very focused on sustainable education and the young generation, and they are going to be the ones driving the sustainability agenda after 2030. Don't treat them as a passive audience. Include them in the partnerships. That's my advice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And to conclude, Ilma, please, one short advice.
My short advice will be higher education needs to build a cross-sector partnership that transform knowledge into practical solutions for SDGs 6 and 7 output.
Thank you so much, and I think we can give a big applause to all our panelists. Thank you so much, and Ola, I give you the floor for the last session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, JC, for that. Thanks to all the speakers. I'm not going to waste any more time. I'll hand over to our last session entitled Higher Education Towards and Beyond 2030. It will explore how higher education can contribute more strategically to sustainable development towards and beyond 2030. We're honored to have this session moderated by Mr. Nikhil Seth, Director of SDG Management School. So Nikhil, thank you for joining us, and over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Ola. And as is usual, we have very little time, and we need to wrap our minds now on the conclusion of a very vibrant and dynamic session. And in wrapping up, I think it's important to start looking to the future. What is it that higher education should do differently to make a bigger contribution to 2030 agenda, and especially think beyond 2030 as to what is going to happen next. What are the key messages that our higher education sustainability initiative has to give to the ongoing high-level political forum for 2026? And we are going to start a process of preparing for a summit in 2027. It's called the SDG Summit, which will set the path for 2030 and beyond. So what is it that we can contribute now? Hearing all the lovely things that have been said, how are we going to contribute to this session of the high-level political forum, to the summit next year, leading up to the preparations for 2030? So these are the sort of things I think we need to focus on, and we have two excellent panelists who will, despite the constraints of time, help us focus on some of these issues. And I just want to go back to some of the things that have been said today. And the impacts on our current world since 2030 have been severe. Technical disruption, conflict, impacts on the labor market, demographic changes, financial pressures, and inequality in access to higher education. And as we move towards implementation in this session, looking forward as to the contributions of HESI and of higher education, what are the changes we need in teaching and learning, in research and innovation, in student engagement, in building partnerships in the policy space, and also with the communities and the various other sectors? It has to be a collective effort. So I want both of you, Patricia and Damien, to focus a little on this. Think of the future. Think of HESI for the future. Think of higher education for the future. And what is it that you'd like to share with us in the short period of time? We had a preparatory meeting before coming to this panel, and I know Patricia focused a lot on student anxiety these days. She's part of the Students Action Group of HESI, and the great anxiety students face on entering the job market. Will they get jobs? What is the AI disruption going to do to jobs? So she, I think, will focus on some of these areas, and Damien will focus as the sort of interface between higher education and policy as to what he has learned in the process and how can we make the interface between policy and academia and higher education, and of course the other communities, a little more impactful. So let me turn to you first, Patricia. Tell us, what did you learn in your Congress in Jakarta? What are the young people's concerns? And how can we rev up and have HESI, I don't know, 3.0 or 4.0 going to the future? So Jessica, you have the floor. Patricia.
Yes, thank you, Nikhil. And yes, I heard it was called University 5.0 at this point. So let's see which version it is now. First of all, I would like to share some of the highlights of the session that I've noted down for myself, which I thought were relevant to share. Which was, first of all, I can see how many people are actually doing amazing stuff. The solutions are there. They're shared. There are platforms that you can get all the ideas from and all the blueprints from. And the only question is how to implement those. And I think that is the major issue and challenge that we are facing. And one of the panelists from the previous session has also mentioned that the challenge is to agree between people, to collaborate. So that is something to address as well in higher education institutions, that we are mostly focusing on the knowledge part. We're lacking the soft skills part. We call them soft skills, though you can call them in many other different ways, right? But things like communication, collaboration, how to trust one another, how to actually be around people. And we are losing that more and more and more, especially with this great digital disruption. Which I also would like to address, as we are talking a lot about AI, and I can hear a lot of talks about AI happening in higher education spaces as well. Everybody's talking about how to react to it. A lot of the people are waiting for the next major breakthrough, the next thing that will come up from policy or from the tech companies. But I really enjoyed how Jongwi summarized her session and the talk with Doug about how university can actually shape what's next. And I would like to encourage the universities as well to stop reacting and try to create. And when we're looking to the post-2030 agenda, that's also the similar idea. Imagine the world that you would like to live in and try to create that together with all of your university community, including the students. And universities have one of the best access to youth out of all of the other institutions in the world I could imagine. And the co-creation power of the next generation that is going to lead and live in this world is immense. So leveraging that is amazing. And honestly, I was also reading some comments in the chats, and James Lee from LSC, London School of Economics Student Union, has wrote that what does UN do to address the principle of meaningful engagement of youth through that is mentioned in UN Pact for the Future. And yes, it's a really big issue because we only see myself in all of these panels representing youth, the only person, and most probably in the audience we don't have much youth either. And that is a really big concern if the decision makers do not include youth. If people that share relevant opinions, speak important things, don't include youth, that is a really big issue of who is actually creating the future. Maybe the people that will not even live in that future are creating it. So we would like to avoid that happening, and we would like to for you to find ways to engage youth as much as possible, and especially to empower them with these skills, as I mentioned previously: collaboration, trust, and communication. Extremely important, so they can actually take the leadership in this and not just follow a certain path that has been built for them without their consent. Thank you.
Patricia, these are excellent points that you make. And basically, you're saying now is how do you convert anxiety into action? You can't just keep articulating your anxiety with a higher and higher pitch. You have to also define what can we do about it. And for that, your second point is connected. That till you invite the people who are feeling this anxiety into all levels of decision making, you won't get the right solution. So I think this is very important, going to the future and looking to the future, looking at higher education, looking at HESI, how to become implementation arms of the grand agendas that are established by the United Nations. You have to find solutions, you have to implement. And with that, can I turn to Damien? Because Damien, you know how to impact, how academia can impact more effectively with policy and with the community. So let's hear your views on what should we be doing differently in institutions of higher education to make that big impact. Over to you, Damien.
Thank you, Nikhil. I want to thank Patricia for her remarks. I think they were quite to the point and accurate. I also want to acknowledge our colleagues who have gone before and who have shared. Very importantly, I was particularly pleased to hear the results of research and also a focus on efforts and actions being taken by higher education institutions with respect to 2030 and beyond. Certainly, from the perspective that I bring to this conversation is from the perspective of Jamaica, a small island developing state. And for us here in Jamaica, and certainly the higher education system and the agency that I lead, sustainable development is not an abstract aspiration. It is survival. It's an imperative. And therefore, the higher education sector, from my perspective, and that of the government of Jamaica, it is about engendering, facilitating solutions and responses that will ensure sustainable futures. We are and have been impacted recently by significant hurricanes, significant catastrophic impact over the past 2 years, 2024 and 2025. The most recent one, the impact led to 30% of our GDP being significantly eroded. climate change, water insecurity, food production and sufficiency challenges, energy vulnerability, external economic shocks. All of these, as you said, Nikhil, in your opening remarks, point to the need for all sectors to be on board. These challenges reinforce the fact that higher education is not merely a sector that supports sustainable development, it is one of the critical engines through which sustainable development has to be achieved. I think that higher education institutions are reflecting greater creativity, greater innovation. They are not reacting to the situation. There are significant examples, as have been shared before. And in Jamaica, we have two institutions, the University of Technology Jamaica and the University of the West Indies, that have created institutes, created programs, created research initiatives and activities geared towards defining solutions. The Sustainable Development Goals are deeply interconnected. Progress on water, energy, infrastructure, cities, partnerships, health, education depends on the availability of knowledge, skills, research, innovation, and capable institutions. And therefore, higher education institutions accelerate implementation, as you correctly emphasized, Nikhil, by producing locally relevant and globally informed research, and we are seeing this, developing the workforce needed for sustainable societies. One of the areas that higher education institutions has to go into more aggressively is this whole issue of workforce development. Now, this is not the traditional approach to training, educating graduates over a 3-4 year period residentially, but rather it is proactively seeking partnerships with institutions, organizations, business enterprises, entrepreneurs in society. What are the gaps? What are the needs as we seek to transition to this future, but to the present and to the future as it drives and causes the anxiety that was highlighted in terms of employment prospects for students. There's a role to support evidence-based policy making, driving innovation and entrepreneurship, building public awareness and civic engagement, and strengthening resilience in vulnerable communities. We note, as I said, with respect to SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 7, affordable and clean energy. Jamaica and the Caribbean continue to experience some of the highest energy costs in the world while remaining vulnerable to external energy shocks. Renewable energy is not only an environmental priority, it is an economic and development necessity. As we look at SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, for small island developing states, innovation is one of the most important pathways to overcoming constraints of scale and geography. So, how do we support entrepreneurship? How do we facilitate business incubation? And again, we are seeing some examples of this. The University of Technology has what is called the Caribbean Sustainable Energy and Innovation Institute. And this was established to advance sustainable energy research, education, innovation, consultancy, and public research. Sustainable cities and communities, as I noted, the impact of these two hurricane systems in 2024 and 2025. The Caribbean, like many other geographic areas across the globe, is increasingly urbanized and simultaneously highly exposed to climate-related hazards. The critical question, therefore, is how the higher education system assists communities to become more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient. With one of the things, Nikhil and colleagues, is the whole emphasis on partnerships. The SDG 17 is therefore very critical, very critical. Recently, we had the opportunity to have participated in a project, the Blue Economy Project, spearheaded by the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation and UNESCO IESA LC. And this demonstrates the importance of South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation. Our research networks are facilitating public-private collaboration and partnerships that focus on local and community knowledge. So these are some of the critical lessons and the areas of focus and the activity that higher education sector has to proceed. If it is that we're really going to have a successful effort over these 4 years to 2030, but critically 2030 and beyond, okay? 2030 and beyond. I've mentioned the University of Technology, the University of the West Indies has established the Global Institute for Climate Smart and Resilient Development, again, focusing on sustainable cities and communities, climate action, and partnerships. I think that the lessons that we have learned in Jamaica and across the Caribbean, the future of higher education, Nikhil and colleagues, must be characterized by 5 priorities: greater resilience in the face of climate and economic shocks, greater inclusion, ensuring that we reduce the numbers of persons who are left behind, greater innovation to address development challenges, collaboration across borders and sectors, and to have greater impact. Because there's a disconnect very often between higher education and the communities, the sense of them being ivory towers, palaces that have no meaningful or relevance. Higher education has long since gone past the point where that model has to be abandoned. And so the extent to which institutions are flexible and agile, responsive, this is the greater demand. And so for the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, our role is in the definition of standards that guide the system. And this is what we are doing. The higher education, to make great contribution to and beyond 2030, must embrace these roles as conveners, innovators, trusted partners, and agents of transformation. And so essentially, my remarks in terms of the movement to 2030 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Damien. It struck me while you were speaking and linking it up with what with what Patricia said and with what Professor Cho said. Sometimes it becomes difficult to isolate the impact of one of the actors on sustainable development. In this case, higher education. You talked about water and energy and sustainable cities. What is the contribution of higher education to achievement of each one of these goals? Is sometimes difficult, but we must make a greater effort to find out how is higher education impacting on the realization of these goals, and how can we isolate that contribution? And probably the way to go is to use the students and others who are engaged in higher education to the way Professor Cho described it in defining the new impact evaluation indexes, so that something like WURI, which the World University Ranking, which plays a very important part in university life, how that can be refined a little more to get away from things that have been developed 40, 50 years ago and to make them more contemporary and linked, for example, to the Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you. Jessica, Patricia, is there any last minute thought you might have, which you might have forgotten to say in your first intervention? And I'll give you a minute for that, and then I'll hand it back to Ola.
I think we're good. Let's close this session. It's already a long time.
Thank you, Patricia and Damon. Back to Ola.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for shepherding us towards the right future. That's much appreciated to have this discussion, and so important at this juncture. So thank you so much for that. So colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this brings the closing segment of today's forum. Allow me to offer a few brief reflections on the next steps, and we thank you for your indulgence and patience as we have navigated this forum today with various technical challenges. So first, today's discussion has really reaffirmed that higher education has a central role to play in accelerating implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Second, the forum has reinforced the importance of moving from aspiration to implementation. Sustainability must be embedded across institutions, both in teaching and learning, research, governance, operations, student engagement, and partnerships. Third, the discussions pointed to the need for stronger links between higher education and policy processes, and this is a role that HESI can really strengthen. Fourth, the role of students and young people must remain central. Students are not only beneficiaries of higher education, they are partners in shaping strong institutions, communities, and future sustainability pathways. Colleagues, the outcome of today's forum will feed into the broader HLPF discussions and inform the forthcoming HESI snapshot to be launched later this year. Today's forum also builds on the policy messages developed through the HESI community of practice. Together, these efforts have helped identify shared priorities from across the higher education community and will continue to strengthen HESI as a bridge between higher education and UN processes. Looking forward to the SDG Summit next year, 2030 and beyond. So on behalf of DESA, UNDESA, and the HESI co-chairs, I would like to thank all the moderators, speakers, responders, partners, and all you, the participants, for your strong engagement with us here today. We encourage all of you to remain engaged with HESI as we continue to strengthen the bridge between higher education and various UN processes towards and beyond 2030. As one participant put it today, universities produce knowledge and partnerships create impact. And it's this diversity of actors in the HESI ecosystem that brings this impact to life through collaboration, creativity, and shared purpose. And in that spirit, let us welcome today's speakers and moderators back to the screen one last time as a reflection of this ecosystem and offer final wave of farewell. With that, I thank to everyone for joining us. We look forward to continuing this journey together, and the meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Good job.
Thank you.